aboard the flying goods. On this episode of Aboard the Flying Spur, we drop in for the first time, do some long overdue upgrades, give her a cleaning, fix an ornery deck cap, put in a modern VHF, address the running rigging, dig out cockpit lockers, make someone's day, and find some time to decompress. I'm Benjamin, and I am the captain of the Flying Spur, a 1982 30-foot cutter-rigged Cape Dory sailboat. I spent the past 14 years in the southwestern Colorado ski town of Telluride. On November 10th of 2020, I drove across the country to begin my liveaboard life on the Flying Spur. Until I began my liveaboard, I had only 50 nautical miles of sailing experience under my belt, so I was both excited and anxious to meet her for the first time. I should mention that I bought the Flying Spur sight unseen on Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. I wasn't sure how I would react when I first saw her, so I nervously walked the harbor to G-Dock, where she was waiting for me. All the way around to Dock G. Before we meet the Flying Spur, here's a little bit about where we are. Hilton Head Island is 1,579 miles from San Miguel County Courthouse on the east coast of the United States. Just north of Savannah, Georgia, there's approximately 40,000 residents on the island, so it feels kind of big coming from Telluride. Shelter Cove Marina is mostly power boats, lots of people coming and going, and a few of us are full-time liveaboard. The marina sits inland from the Atlantic by about 5 miles and is well protected from storms. So here she is, my new home, the Flying Spur. Upon opening the companionway hatch for the first time, I found myself here at last. I suppose what occurred to me was I was trading one way of living for another. With no expectation other than at some point to begin sailing her, I had a keen sense of awareness of where I was in that moment. Just doing what I would do on any other day, but on a 30-foot sailing vessel. So, slightly overwhelmed with joy and just ready to get this thing going, I dug right in for a scrub down, bow to stern. Lots of things to discover and familiarize myself with, and for being only 30 feet in length, I'm still familiarizing myself with things quite often. The original stove that came with the boat was still intact. It was a pressurized alcohol stove, and I had made plans when I bought her to replace it with a modern propane alternative. Here I am bringing down the new propane stove. The interior is pristine teak, and the new stove is heavy stainless steel, making for a delicate procedure, although this project went exceedingly well. There were other minor things like the original 120 outlets that were tired and mildly corroded. Replacing them with a newer integrated USB charger was a no-brainer. The original VHF radio was still intact, but quite unserviceable. I had planned on replacing it with something more modern that would give me some visibility to others in offshore waters. This was a needed upgrade to pass any country's Coast Guard requirement. I also took this opportunity to do a minor upgrade to the cabin lighting. Here's a fun one. While attempting to service the battery selector, the plastic from 1982 has just fallen apart. This moment was actually pretty gut-wrenching and a little defeating. It was the first time I had opened or accessed the wiring, and it all fell apart in my hands at once. Here is my rigging job to get both of the batteries and then to the panel. I'm sure that's not up to code, but it'll do for now. Seeing what was behind this control panel for the first time was a bit intimidating. In the end, this same rotating switch that fell apart is still being manufactured today, so I got one in and was back in business a couple days later. And as for this wiring, it's actually in great condition, and I've traced most of it and understand the layout much better since. One job high on the list was replacing all running rigging, so every line was replaced.
Tell me everything you heard. Daunting and a bit unsure. Fields have gotten insecure.
I splicing one end, then burying the line on itself on the other.
Said my mind is overrun. Said I'm
Swapping out the lines was pretty straightforward as well. I lashed the end of the new one to the end of the old one and pulled it right through the block.
not till I'm free.
All in all, I will have replaced around 700 feet of line.
Set my mind at no more space, and I begged you not to go.
The owner of 33 years left me with a wonderful hard sailing dinghy. The only problem is, one, it's heavier than the Flying Spur, and two, I can't fly the Yankee or move about well on the foredeck. So sadly, it had to go. I really would have liked to keep it, but the practicality was working against that notion. Perhaps if I had a proper workshop at my disposal, I may have considered cutting it in half to convert it into a nesting dinghy. So the new owner came by to assist unloading from the Flying Spur. Okay, in case you didn't catch that, let's rewind. Cue distraction and drop winch handle on deck, winch handle overboard, and into the water. No way I'm jumping in for that here. Goodbye $80.
Cool. Oh, that's not too bad. Is it heavier on your end? You have all that? You have all the weight?
Yeah, it's good weight.
Fun. To put in.
I'm trying to get the Flying Spur hauled out in a nearby yard to do some long overdue work, and before heading to the fuel dock, I thought it might be a good idea to just open the deck cap on the fuel filler line. Good thing too, because it was seized. Seized as in WD-40 overnight seized. I quickly replaced the old one with a new one and a new filler hose as well. Still trying to get her hauled out though. On the next episode of Aboard the Flying Spur, I take my new dinghy and electric motor out for a sea trial. Run the lines for the new propane stove and the propane locker on the push pit, practice the art of bimini building, service the old winches, install an anchor roller, and go aloft for the first time. Please leave questions or comments below. I'd love to respond to them. Thanks for watching. The website and Patreon are still a work in progress. I look forward to seeing you again on the next episode of Aboard the Flying Spur.